Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title of this episode is Sacred, and it is titled Calling of an Advanced Civilization. You see, people are more interested in doing things they have never done before rather than repeating. When we look at nature, we see many other species, many types of other organisms have access to a collective efficiency. It's as if the creature is not designed to just be an individual. It is also designed to be part of the environment. That means we think we can only speak to people. Little do we know the world has been speaking through us as the events of this realm. We see the bee. We can see an individual life to the bees in a beehive. We can see that they go flower to flower, like individual human beings going to experience to experience to experience. But then the bee brings something back to the hive. And right now, in regards to the kind of economical culture that we have, people are not in contributing to one hive. I remember hearing a quote. It said, you either, if you have a dream in this life, if you want to do something, you either do it or you either follow your dreams or someone else will find you to make you build their dream. And so that's the most crucial thing. That in this life, I keep telling people, you're the pilot, you're the pilot, you're the pilot. Why? Because you have we as creatures, especially with our conscious capacity, we have an opportunity to look at one phenomena and extract multiple meanings. Pretty much I want to make this point that human beings, they are not aware of the hive mind of nature. It's as if we stepped out of the jungle into the concrete jungle, and for the first time, our minds became superior to the environment. You see, an animal in a forest, that animal can't dictate how the forest looks like. That animal's free will is limited to the environment, but man's free will could change his environment. We were like, for how long are we going to sit on stones? Let's make chairs. So it was as if we changed the environment. We could see the environment differently. And that was, you can say, the importance of language and also the importing of language. That means I hadn't noticed this until now, but in the word important, there is import. It's as if we're importing an ant. An imported ant is important. Wow, I can't believe until this day I hadn't realized the word important is important ant. It's an imported ant. Anyways, though, back to the idea. An advanced civilization, the value of it. Why should people care for this idea? Why should human beings wonder about the hive when a bee is free to go on any flower? Why? Because the bee is designed for the hive. The bee is designed for the hive, and we human beings have been designed for a collective engagement. You know, it's like these 8 billion human beings, they haven't realized the hive yet. The hive is fragmented. That means imagine a beehive with a bunch of queens, not just one queen. Usually what happens if you study bees, if you study busy bee psychology, you You get to see that if there's two beehives, okay, and you take the queen of one of the beehives and replace it with the queen of another beehive, all the bees will know the queen is an imposter, and all the bees in the beehive will kill the queen. Did you know that? I didn't know this until it shocked me that bees have a loyalty, but their loyalty is based on their instincts. So that means if you change the queen of a beehive, all the bees go crazy pretty much. You see, we have forgotten that we were a hunter-gatherer society, but we were a hunter-gatherer society of our outer realms. Now it's required for us to be a hunter-gatherer society of our inner realms. And that's what's happening indirectly. You see, like all this content online on the internet, that's hunting and gathering, you know? That means I could say the hunt had to do with a confrontation, but gathering didn't. That means the berries that were picked from the bush didn't fight back like a wild animal. But when the person went to hunt something, yeah, it's a very intense thing hunting. I could totally see myself back in the day just standing on a tree, and then when an animal walks down from like the with the weight of gravity like the person uses to hunt, you know but really in reality it's this world is designed to be unpredictable. It's designed so that you can't predict it all the time. You can see models, like pretty much what the mind is doing is that it sees a landscape of different models upon the environment. You see, guys, love is important, but it is not what will advance civilization. It is what will prepare us for an advanced civilization, but it is not what advances a civilization. An advanced civilization requires blueprints. It literally requires architects, you know? So it's as if before the architect has built the building, we're like, we love everything, but yet the building hasn't been made. So the calling of an advanced civilization is a suggestion that a human being on a rock in the middle of nowhere, upon evaluating and measuring trying to articulate various ways of movement, comes to the conclusion that that is the only greatest game to play as a physical being. You see, you can leave the room of matter. There's yogis that they are never in this world, but they're in it. They're in the world, but they're not of it, you can say. That means the inner dimensions is where the hope of the outer dimensions arises. I don't know how in my life it became important to think about an advanced civilization. I don't know. I think at some point I realized that if I consider myself to be an objective creature, if I exist, then existence's purpose is in some sense a design one. Because we find ourselves in a world where it's like a dream. We don't know the far past and we don't know the far future, and we find ourselves in the present moment, and it's as if life is not per se a calculation, it is an event where you require to walk with it. There's sometimes in life there is moments where it's not that the person needs to do something or should have done something. It's just that the person has to understand when you are in the room, you are in the room. When your eyes open in the morning, the world has bowed to your mind as your mind has bowed to the world. You see, love cannot be an escape because love doesn't forget. That's the thing. I remember writing this script. It was heavy, guys. It was one of the most unique scripts I've written. And the script, what did I call it? I think I called it, what did I call it? I think it had a very unique name. I don't know what I call Avataria. I don't know if I called it that. But anyways, the whole story was that the film begins. If this was a film, you'd begin to see that it's at heaven, the pearly gates of heaven. Okay? And there's a group of 10 people who just popped from the bottom of the clouds and they're in heaven. And they find themselves at the pearly gates. And so the gates, there comes a voice and says, "You have all been worthy, you may enter." You know? And so the door of heaven opens, everybody enters except one person. And the voice that is inviting these beings to heaven gets shocked and says, "Why don't you enter heaven?" You know? And then the voice says, "I have a promise to keep." And so the whole film is about how this being had reached a sort of ultimate point, but because there was an ultimate ability at that point, there was an ultimate ability to keep the promise. I think it was Bill Burr in his comedy where he said something as if like the person's gone to heaven and then the person's like, "God, what is this? I'm only in heaven and all the people I love are like condemned. Like, what is this?" You know, it was a sort of. Now, in the script, what happens is the guy goes back and you see his life in different lifetimes. And you see how he made a promise in one lifetime and then lifetimes later he came back to complete the promise. You know? You see people draw art. People seek the new, but they don't seek it collectively. That's the only difference. Can you imagine an advanced civilization where we have archives of all known methods and unknown methods? Imagine we had a giant library of human names and every human being who had lived had realized the value and the importance of sharing the mind's expression with the collective. You see, pretty much an advanced civilization, if there's 8 billion creatures on the rock, they literally have to look at a similar value. That means it's just like building a house on in an island, you know? It's as if whoever sees the value of it comes and contributes. You know, that's the calling part, where it's as if your own inner realm sees the value of a phenomenon and walks towards it, you know? Because this life, it's weird. It's like the person, if it was 100% in control, you wouldn't feel happy. And if it was 100% out of control, the person wouldn't feel happy. It seems like it's a surfboard, this life. You know, you got to keep our balance or the whole meaning collapses. You know? You know what's fascinating? We are unconscious of the physical emergence of our consciousness. Like when the doctor slaps it and in the back and the child starts breathing, you know? It's as if the child doesn't go like, "What the fuck, doc?" The child doesn't have a personality, you know? Imagine the child was conscious, you know, imagine infant children had personalities. And when the doctor slapped, the guy's like, "I'll get you back one day, doc." Life is an opportunity. It's best lived when there is inner authorization and outer authorization. If the person doesn't honor the outer realms, you will internally unauthorize yourself. If the person is too vicious to the nature of the world, you'll see the nature of the world is like it feels pain. You know, it's not human beings that only feel pain. I think the way the planet feels pain is that it is the absence of something it has been building. That means on some level, yes, human beings are their own individuals, but on another level, they are nature's inventions. And as nature's invention, it's as if regardless of man thinking he is his own owner, nature is moving many things. Right now, it's like when I think about my mind and it's how it's in some sense imposing design and living through it. You know what's fascinating? Existence is like an alphabet that you were born knowing. But experience is how you use this alphabet of existential consideration. How you have considered existence is your power. How you have seen the gentleness of the world will suggest how you will walk, over the burning coal of wrath. There's human beings that they don't see the value of the future because many people don't realize it. Selfishness is in the present. Selfishness is in the here and now. Because in the here and now, it's just you see you. But only if you could consider the future that, oh wait, imagine like your person A and person B are talking in the park and they get into an argument. If they all acknowledge their here and now, the conversation never ends. It never gets anywhere. But if the person realizes, wait a minute, the person I'm speaking to has a future just like I have a future. So what does our future selves deserve rather than just being in the here and now and being nothing? You see, the ability of man, we discovered the future. Jordan Peterson, this epic speaker, was making this point. That we discovered the future. There was a day that human beings were suddenly like, yo man, there could be a tomorrow. Like we created that word. Probably a person named Tom created the word tomorrow. And a person named Tim created the word time. And a person named Amin created the word amino acid. You see, it's the worlds are reflections of how we have lived. That's pretty much how language emerges. There is behavior. There was meaning before there was language. What that means is there was a caveman seeing another caveman, imagine, and they didn't have a language, but when something dangerous happened to the other caveman, imagine a rock was falling on a caveman, one caveman didn't know, there wasn't language, but there was meaning. That means there was identification of creaturehood, but not on a linguistic level. So the caveman would just say, ah, 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 like as if like something is falling on the other. There is no language, yet there is the meaning of the expression within. That's the value of our inner life, that it is strangely in some domain of our control. That you can visualize and you can position the visualization. Any object in this room, I can envision it anywhere in the room, in my inner realms. I see the design there as if like two Photoshop layers, but one Photoshop layer has a different opacity. That means the mind is like a world where you don't have hands, attention is the mover. But the body is a realm where you have limbs and you have a body and you can move. And it's epic. It's epic that we are creatures right now. Can you imagine we were just sight in space? Let me see, is it a big crowd today? No, 4 concurrent viewers, okay. I honestly don't know how the calling of an advanced civilization would arise. Because on some level, I just see a system that it's weird. It's like, why can we see a better civilization in our inner realms? Why? That means even, let's say there was endless arguments for not building an advanced civilization, But why is the design, the potential of it there in our minds? Why can we see an advanced civilization that many of the issues of today, it's as if the future generations will not have? That is our challenge, that we solve our problems while we're alive so the future generations don't have to deal with it, And what it is that we don't realize it yet, but the most divine thing in life is movement before reason. That means it's many human beings. They are very reasonable creatures. But when we go to buy, for example, a refrigerator, after all the reasons, then there is aesthetics, then there is emotion, then there is how the moment will feel if this object enters your life. And it could be the same. It's like there's window shopping for objects. There's also window shopping for subjects. That's what a lot of language worship leads the person, where they think language has to be responsible for their experience. Never. It will never happen. Language is a mask. The mask is lifeless. You are the life behind the mask. So if that life isn't noticed, because so many people, they act like they care for themselves, but if you care for yourself, won't you realize that the idea of self is dependent on the idea of the collective? That means who will feel like a winner if the whole kingdom is destroyed, but then there is victory? There is no value. There's no value in a war where there is nothing left at the end. We have mistaken freedom for anarchy. We think that the systems are bad, not realizing they took them decades, centuries to develop. Do you know? The only way to bring an advanced civilization is to become an advanced human being. There's no other way. And the only way you can be an advanced human being, if you study your communication and start learning from your own mind. This is something many teachers can't teach, because if they do, you don't need them. Do you see? That's something I noticed. What teacher if it's non-dual? What guru? What enlightenment? What meditation if it's non-dual? You see, it's a return into the unknown. An advanced civilization will mean an advanced communicator is a being that realizes they are simultaneously, as they are being a known individual communicator of their inner realms, they're simultaneously being the advanced communication of their universal sector. That's it. That you realize that you are simultaneously being the universe. And when I realized this, I laughed and cried at the same time. It was a very deep moment. It was a moment where I was laughing because it was so simple. I was crying because I had lived in such a complex way I hadn't realized the value. You see, I noticed that there's distractions in life. These distractions are barriers. These barriers do not deny the truth, yet they put us in a location where we can't access the better. So the way out of the simulation is to stop treating the simulation like a simulation. Then you see what it is. Then you have given the world a chance to breathe anew in your mind. You know, I notice we have, for example, firemen, policemen, incredible public servants, human beings who they've decided to survive by defending others, by protecting others. Now I thought that we have, for example, like police for, not police necessarily, just we have like public servants for the outer realms, for objective safety. But I realized, imagine we had an organization, you know, called, imagine there were advanced communicators all around the planet. Human beings who could communicate in multiple ways. You see, communication means we can move the world before physically moving the world. This is why those who are smart, when they are in combat or in any situation, they try to see as if how can they fight the, how would I say it? It's like you try to defeat the opponent without raising your weapon. If you are at that level, you are truly intelligent. You are truly intelligent. If you realize I don't know if this is the right word, but the cadence and elegance of the mind, that it gives you access to a life where materialistic value can be dynamic. That means how we see matter, it can correlate. So the mind is drawing lines between various moments. That's what a memory is. So we can say the mind is drawing itself in manifestation, or is choosing. So free will would be how much you choose reality to be real. You know, we have nihilists on this planet. Nihilists are people who, for them, the overall analysis of the realm is empty. That means as if there is no one here. Even the nihilist, it's as if a nihilist is like there's nothing to be a nihilist. You know, that means in nihilism, to be a proper nihilist, that means you don't exist. But for example, in solipsism, the person feels they are the only thing that exists. They feel that they are the whole world. A lot of people who go towards, for example, Terence McKenna's views, and in regards to the psychedelic approach, they are in some sense wanting to experience solipsistic realities. Realities where suddenly the inner realm, the outer realms become static, and the inner realms are the only truth. That means if I sit down, my mind is moving in the world first, then my body. But when I move, then my body is moving, and the mind can change while the body changes, feeling the illusion that the body is here first. The poet Hafez says, "Bring your neck out of that dark nest in which you hide. I shall pour effulgence into your mind." That means an advanced civilization speaks for itself. And you know, the calling of an advanced civilization means for the first time man has transcended the individual heaven. Because the individual heaven is where you can notice the collective hell. If you're in the individual hell, you don't even see the suffering of the world yet. You see your own suffering first. But once you climb the mountain of your own suffering and reach the peak, you will notice that to go beyond the peak of this realm, which Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says diversity without separateness is the ultimate that the mind can touch. If you want to go beyond unity and uniqueness, then the journey is not with feet, it is with wings. That means the body can only get you to a certain evolutionary state. Then it's as if the oversoul hugs the body, thanks it, and frees it. That means it's as if like there are beings who they liberate the cells of their body. That means they look in the mirror and they honor the existence of the moment. It has nothing to do with idea. It has nothing to do with your memories. It has nothing to do with how special you are. The next great phase and the era of advanced communicators is that for the first time a species has become interested in what the world is doing, not just the self. The privilege of a lifetime that the game of eons in an instant clarifies. You see, I feel we are really downplaying ourselves as creatures. We have forgotten how rare it is for us to be. And so it's as if like on some level I feel that violence is not realizing the value of existence. It's as if the person has allowed the other to become their imagination so they don't see the suffering they cause. You see, there's one thing worse than being cruel. You know? thinking you are being nice and not seeing the cruelness of the other side. You see, the inner realms can grant anything. The inner realms can justify anything. I can sit somewhere and find endless arguments why it makes sense to steal. We're temporary beings, why not? But what if we are not? You see, the advanced communicator doesn't chase what has already melted or what will melt. You see, material desire is like snow. It's like grabbing snow and over time watching it melt, because your mind is living a life here that transcends any object that you own or owns you. That means it's like I thought about how do we bring freedom, and then I realized an algorithm, a strategy, that we attempt for the most advanced civilization, the highest steps we can fathom. We attempt the greatest, and it's like if we don't reach, if we jump for the moon and we don't reach it, we land in the stars. So if we want to build an advanced civilization that is 10 times more advanced than this, if we try that, we might suddenly end up with a civilization that's 3 times advanced than this, rather than trying an advancement that is only one step ahead, one step ahead. For how long can we chase butterflies? You know? For how long can we hard work towards extinction? You know, it's like we're working hard towards where? If we have the blueprints, we need architecture, we need designers. But we don't need designers that are waiting for the designs. We need designers that design themselves. An advanced civilization will mean, first of all, in regards to, first you got to see human beings as having a velocity. What does that mean? That means it took us 4 billion years to be able to direct ourselves. Did you know that? Before that, it was like nature was moving us. Now we're moving ourselves. So we have direction. So if we are thinking about an advanced human being as a member of an advanced civilization, what has advanced about that human being? The direction. What that means is multidimensional minds, multidimensional cultures. Cyberspace is going to help that. Cyberspace is here to make us comfortable. Actually, it's an evolutionary phase before a mind's responsibility within many bodies. That means it's like when you play a video game character, the soul of that video game character is your intent, right? So cyberspace culture is going to be when we're going to start actually living in multiple outer apparent worlds. You see, it's the whole point is you don't, guys. I just saw the chat section for a second. So Charles and Mr. Grateful, what I'm trying to say is that you gotta attempt for the maximum, and if you attempt for the maximum, surprisingly, it makes so many of the hard obstacles on the road journey easy. For example, in my life, when I decided to give 10,000 talks, I thought, all right, that means one talk should be like as easy as breathing. If I'm intending to do that many, right? So when you attempt the great, it doesn't matter if you achieve it, you end off way greater than where you started, or if you had attempted only one step ahead. You see, people fear the world, and then that fear is handled throughout time as they mature in the realm. But the fear, most people fear themselves, and most people fear their own deserving of greatness. You know, Shakespeare says there are those that are born great. Some are born great. Some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Those who have greatness thrust upon them, it's like the third generation. You know? In this life, you are like a packet of energy, as this very incredible rabbi scholar said in a YouTube video I saw. And when you think of yourself as energy, your energy is going to your attention. So that's why direction is going to become multidimensional. The second component of velocity is speed. Right now we're living slow. Life feels slow to me. Not life feels slow. I mean, it's not. It's like there's different speeds of it. But I'm saying civilization feels slow to me. It's like the moment human beings stopped caring about the world stopped caring about itself. You know, we don't realize it, but the solution to an advanced civilization is very attitude based. That means it's like if you're bored, you will go towards the new. If you're scared, you will never let yourself see beyond the curtain. You see, there is a freedom that the person chases and attains. Then there is a type of freedom that comes to you and you become a student of the world. When you become a student of the world, it's not the student's preference that's directing the moment, it's the teacher's preference. So what I mean by that is that it's like people have outer realm teachers and they have inner realm teachers. The inner realm teacher is inseparability of the individual and the collective. The outer realms is where they have to be separate in order for us to speak about something. It's like little do people know that if you walk towards a simpler and just chilled out, honest life, what is meant for you happens. But if you are not, if there is one tiny intuitive conscience pulse that you are not being who you are, then you see the inner realms become stormy. When you do not hear the melody of your own mind, then it's as if you have forgotten existence before you can experience any truth of it. You see, there are those who walk away from this realm. You can think of it that there's vertical life purposes and there's horizontal purposes. Horizontal purposes are purposes based on a singular dimension. Vertical purposes are multidimensional. What that means is there's some human beings who it's like they've come here to work on this planet, and there's some human beings who have just come to explore it, maybe be even travelers, maybe they are just, it's a station of mind for them, you know, because the mysteries of what lies behind the void is our own spirit, is the source of attention, that in the middle of nowhere there was enough of an attention to see that nowhere become now here. There is a geometrical multiplicity to the realm. Language is, I say it's an advance of technology, but the more we use it, the more we see it can evolve. In this life, there is a choice to be nothing. You can be nothing here. Or you can realize because there is things around, because there is a mind that can articulate, it means the meaning of life is to observe and engage. What greater meaning can you have? Its meaning is limited to how open your eyes are, in what ways you have noticed the world move, how your experiences roared to ears that were never here. Rise, mankind. The calling of an advanced civilization, its symphonies will soon be heard. There will be moments in life that no ideology can own. Ideas just walk back because they've never seen the experiencer move like this. an advanced civilization with an advanced velocity. We solved the wars of language by embracing the multidimensional context. Therefore, no concept could be judged alone. That every eyes, every mind added to the room was another dimension to the soul of the moment. We have to start getting fascinated, not by our future self, but the world that that future self is standing in. So many people want to be better in the future, but it's like, how can you see the world? So many people, their view of success, I see it in these motivational speakers. They just point to the self. It's as if they're giving candy to a baby. They're like, you're great. How would I say it? It's dismissing 50% of the equation. If you're trying to be only a better self. The Buddha was the younger brother of the Bodhisattva. What that means is the younger brother sees what the older brother does and realizes that there's other ways to move. You know, this is why I think being a middle child in a family, I'm not a middle child, I only have a twin brother, but when anybody who's a middle child of a family, they are blessed. I can't tell you how many great leaders of the future are children who are the middle child of the family. Those who are in their youth exiled or feel a little pushed back by the world, they will have an inner strength years later, which is remarkable. Because once you get pushed, and you push back and you still get pushed, then you push back and you get pushed, after a while you stop pushing and you can't be pushed. That means it's karma responds to which mind evokes the image first in the room. That means if you're in a room, think of it like in chess. When you play chess, the whole point of chess, it depends on which side you start. If you start first, you're on the offense. You're invading a kingdom. If you start the other side, you start as defense. So in chess, based on which side you are, your strategy is defensive or your strategy is attack. Now, here's the thing. In sometimes the defensive strategy, when you have to, let's say you're the pieces where you got to defend, and so the pieces that have to defend, they are just waiting for that which is attacking them to make a mistake. That means if you are in the position where you are less in the moment, then you just wait. Because the thing is, any system after a time makes mistakes. But the issue is the morality, the superior morality. That means, would we in an advanced civilization have good and bad people? No. The way I've explained Civilization 2.0 is that it's a yin-yang civilization. That means it has two minds. Something that I hope to be, I don't know, hopefully I have the ability to complete this and then leave the dimension, leave this plane of existence. But I've seen this vision in my mind where first it was the school of Athens, a place where philosophers would come and the spirit of rhetoric would speak through them. The logos would raise itself in the school of Athens. Now, I thought of the notion of the Colosseum. The Colosseum as if being an audience. And for me, the internet is a giant Colosseum. And so I thought of this idea, and then there was something about me infusing. Imagine like philosophers debating and a Colosseum around them. Okay? Now imagine, I took it further and I infused the notion of a parliament with this. That we build a hall of advanced communicators where there is a neutral, the kind of Buddhic middle way, the speaker of the house. And then we have different sides. And we have, for the first time, a parliament-like discussion and debate, but for philosophy, not politics. where all the different ideologies in the world, ideological systems, there's different people sitting in this chamber. This kind of coliseum of great communication. You see, first we were fascinated by movement, physical movement. Now we're moving to an era where, because we're becoming conscious that we're not thoughts, the movement of thought is becoming fascinating. Right now, before the year 2050, we have like 30 years, pretty much as a species, to advance communication. That means whoever you are, if you have some inspiration in your inner realms, share it. Now more than ever, we need to input natural human behavior in the digital cyberspace. Do you see? One day I hope I'm shouting, order, order. Oh. Here's the thing. People want to improve their lives, which technically means they want to improve their self. But how improved can yourself be if the world isn't improved? Let's say right now, whoever you are listening, you had read all the books on this planet, you had access to every information on the internet, you just instantly knew it. Let's say all the greatest teachers and minds on the planet, they all came and at the same time shouted their teaching to you, and you embraced all of it. And you had become a human being that had reached the pentacle and the epitome of the information age. You knew everything. You will see what is there to know after you know everything. Experience is novelty being your teacher. Because those who are wise, if they hear me speak, you might figure out what I'm doing. I am exploring the nature of mind and the endless rhythmic linguistic simulations that can contain a person. You see, it's as if language is a t-shirt you didn't put on yourself. language is like, language is, language is like the child just opened its eyes in it. Little do we know that what free will means is that emptiness has a choice to be anything. For me, it's like this. We enter a system. We start from the dualistic. Consciousness, subjective evolution is dualism. The objective evolution was a singularity. Because if you think about it, like, how fascinating are we as a creature? Just think about it. Where we have one physical body, but this physical body, through evolution, has found the capacity to not only have a storage of different ways it has existed throughout time, but it also has like this private studio of imagination, this private room where you can fathom and you can impose the imagery of the past on the future. So we are an incredibly, strangely advanced creature. We are an advanced intelligent activity of this universal sector. So first thing is that we have to find contentment with the dimensions, or you can't work with it. For me, before I work, I set up my space. That means it's like, even I sit at a table, I set up the objects on the table in a way where I feel it's geometrically satisfying to my mind. Then I begin working. And the good thing about work is that if you're honest, then it's your skill. If you're dishonest, then you're ideologically trying to achieve something. But if you're honest, then it's left to your skill. It's as if whatever you are, when the kingdom is at siege, when humanity is under attack by the forces of nature, human beings rise. Now we have to become incredibly conscious of our mind. We should become conscious of our mind, not because the ancient yogis said it, because we deserve an advanced civilization. And also because if aliens attack, we should probably know what we are. Imagine an alien species lands and says, human beings, welcome. It's an important moment. We're peaceful aliens, so don't freak out. But we have a question. Who are you as human beings? What is humanity? And we'd look at the aliens and we'd all shake our heads and we'd be like, sorry, man. We've been trying to figure it out ourselves. We don't know what we are. So we would be making contact with a species, but we wouldn't know what we are. Do you know? Because the mystery still stands. Because it's not just the self that's alive. The world was here first. And this is why some beings are wise. That before they speak, they have kissed the silence of the earth. Evolution comes from nowhere. Of Gold of One in the chat section says evolution comes from nowhere. Evolution can't be traced, just like time doesn't exist. That's why when we forget that we are human, we have the opportunity to come back and aid ourselves with a new perspective. Okay, so interesting comment of Gold of One. I'll tell you this. Our evolution, if there was no light, we wouldn't even be conscious of our evolution. We might be evolving, but we would have no reference for evolution. Evolution in a dark room would probably be like, we feel something, we don't know what it is though. So there is certain conditions of physical conditions we need to be in order to even be able to consider evolution. Because if a human being, for example, doesn't eat for a while, it influences their psychology. So we need to, it's like once we have become masters of our outer realms, not masters in regards to like owning the world. It's in regards to the mastery of skill. What that means is an advanced communicator is a human being that can acknowledge the silence and the noise. That means an advanced communicator would be a person who would go in a room and close their eyes and wonder about how communication is arising in their inner realms and how the room feels. I've entered in rooms where I stepped out of the room and just asked people, did people fight in this room? And they were like, yeah. Because it feels, there's a sensitivity. When you stop living as a character in a story, your experience gives you the content. So you become actually a moment observing the content within it rather than a certain identity based on a certain part of your moment of being. You see, the power of the presence surpasses the personality. All archetypes that die, they find themselves to be the presence. What that means is archetypes need attention as a god. So attention, when you realize your attention before what's in it, you don't freak out. You watch life. That means there's hunters that are fools. They just run in front of the animal and the animal's like, who is this guy? And the animal runs away, right? But then there's hunters who they become the environment and they wait and they're silent. They have become this as if the person is not a hunter when they're hunting. They're just the environment, you know? Then, when the event calls, the action occurs. Now, hunting, of course, is a very archaic view. Now, the way I say hunting, I'm saying it's exploration of the inner realms. It's not physical. It's not violent. If you're living violent, you haven't realized the Ferrari you're in. It's like living violent on this planet is like being in a Ferrari but driving at 10 miles per hour. Violence actually makes a person stupid. So forget the good reason of violence, the bad reason, it decays your intelligence. Because whoever you hurt, you are also getting an experience. The mind sees through the eyes of the other subconsciously, whether you like it or not. This is why we have empathy, because the mind probabilistically is wondering who the other person is in front of us. So it's like the person may not care. The person might be a violent goon, a thug, right? Not care about who they're hurting, but the subconscious of the mind has considered who the person is. It's just that the person has become numb to their own conscience because they have denied their better life to themselves. That means when you are violent, you have been also violent to your mind, which is the experience of the moment, and the mind will not honor you. If your mind dishonors you, then you have to build the honor. That means it's like life is never, there's no such thing as success or failure. It's just massive events that continue. And if you can endure, you will experience enough to attain a sort of skill in any field you go in. You could be a chef right now hearing me. You could be an accountant here, whoever you are. You could be like a artist, whatever. Whoever you are, it's like even Beethoven says, don't just practice your art, but force your way into its secrets. For it and knowledge can raise man to the divine. So for the first time, novelty is how we are our own divinity. How you dance in space and time suggests how time and space dance with you. How gently you breathe in this world suggests how fiercely the lords of karma gaze upon you. Guys, in the chat section of Gold of One says, so we need to destroy our old dimensional perspective and be reborn with another perspective. Whether you like it or not, we are all experiencing phoenix psychology. That's the whole point of sleeping and waking up. When I sleep, the phoenix is turning into ashes. When I wake up, it hatches from the egg. You know, so the cool thing about the mind is that it finds itself where the body is. Charles says we depart from one thought and are born to arrive at the next thought perspective. Every arrival is a new point of departure. Yes, before we live here, it's as if Vishnu, Shiva, and Krishna are sitting at the same table, watching the masterpiece of the one and only. You know, there was a very important deity figure named Rama, and he, in Indian culture, is the archetype of the perfect man, I believe. And the thing about Rama is that one day someone comes to Rama and says, Rama, why do we have to work? Why do we have to work for enlightenment? Why do we have to work for an advanced civilization? You know, I mean, they didn't say advanced civilization, but, you know, they're very close in meaning. The guy's like, why do we have to work? That was the thing. The guy says, why do we have to work in this world? And Rama looks at the man and says, because those beings in lesser dimensions, they are too savage to even notice the question. And those beings in higher dimensions of Mount Meru, those beings have so many offerings and their desires are so instantly filled, they never need to question anything. It is only in human life, it is only on earth where the truth does not lie to man. And so Rama says, in earth is the only place where you can be conscious of the question and also become conscious of the answer. Because there is a gravity to things. We are pulled by forces that we understand and forces we don't. Sometimes love feels that way. Feels like just something is important that you got to move towards, you know? Because we can get too inspired by the outer realms to forget the inner realms, and we can get too inspired by the inner realms to forgive the outer realms. Right now, we shouldn't see a good civilization or a bad civilization, so all conspiracy theorists need to come back to Earth and realize that the point of the world is, if we can see a better design, we attempt. That's it. It's prototypes. Right now, this is the first prototype of civilization. Let's call it Civilization 1.0 in my own schools of thought, I speak that way. In my own inner realms, the world is held very differently than how I see it. And it's not held because it deviates from its nature. It's held because I can see the pattern. There was this show where there was this a character who was this. It was a very strange show. The character, there was a person who was like being this archangel archetype named Uriel, and when this guy would press a piano key, it would set a chain of events into place that were unstoppable. As if it was a being, it was a character archetype that had the ability to dabble with destiny. So that's the thing. Sometimes when I look at something, it does, like when I look at an empty cup, yes, in the here and now, I see the emptiness, no self. But when I see the empty cup, I could also see it be filled. And that is more divine than absence of divinity. Because when you're not a self, there is nothing of a self. The gift it's like you can totally become a non-dual being here. You can live as a collective mind. Your body can just become a corner of your universe. But is it worth it? Maybe this planet is a great celebration. Maybe we have achieved great victories in the past, and now the only thing left is to celebrate, as if eternal beings celebrating at an individual party of a cosmic level. But what would an eternal being do? And that's the point. Being can't do anything. It's just being. It is only this rare opportunity where it's as if like Excalibur has already been pulled. 4 billion years of evolution has provided you, has allowed an object to become a subject to itself. That's Excalibur. Language is Excalibur. We've already pulled the sword out, and young children are every day pulling out the sword of language, the Excalibur of language. So what it is like we are advanced beings. And I think the contentment comes on 4 dimensions. We arrive to it in 4 dimensions, where if we are to have an advanced civilization, the advanced communicator needs to have the capacity to acknowledge the 0 dimension, empty space. And after you are content, after you're comfortable with the cup being empty, you can fill it up with anything. It becomes super easy. But if you're not comfortable with the cup being empty, you have something to hold. But here's the funny thing in life, that joy is drinking what's in the cup, which means it leads to emptiness. The edge of joy is hollow. That's why the event of life, it's as if nature's mind is playing games through human eyes. Now we have to seek the greatest game of them all, the ultimate of the ultimates. The one thing that we have not considered is that skill is our savior. Our attention is the savior. That means civilization is not so bad. It's just unupdated. And to update it requires advanced beings. So if we start living as advanced beings, then automatically the civilization will update. So it's really just one command. That means there has been revelation from objective realms in regards to discovering new planets and whatnot. There has been revelation in regards to the subjective realm where voices have appeared from the void. And now there is an evolution which is a revelation of the collective the collective effort of civilization. That means we don't know what it feels like even. It's like we're talking about a jacuzzi, but we've never been in a jacuzzi. I remember, guys, I went to my family when I was young. We went to Turkey, and they had these hot springs. It was very next level. It was like from the earth, this hot boiling water was coming out, and they had this was years ago, And they had these kind of like boiling like water from the earth, kind of like giant jacuzzis. And then they had these what do you call it, they had these cold, like, I don't know, cold jacuzzis, but they were just still water, you know. And there was this guy who was so foolish that he took his child and put his child into the hot jacuzzi, do you know, and took out the child, and the child got fainted, do you know? Like there was something intense that happened when I was there. And I realized it's like it's discretion. It's like it's an art to be a human being. It's not easy, you know? If it feels easy, if your life feels too easy, then it's like you're not human. What is the purpose of a bird on a branch? What is the purpose of an endless sky? What is the purpose of an unknown viewer? What is the purpose of the whole moment? That's the thing. The more collective we perceive things, we actually become experiencers. The collective is like an ultimate ego release on a massive level. You see, because there's so many human beings that are living in what I call the shadows of civilization. That means imagine an advanced civilization was built, but it would also have a shadow when the sun would come up. And the shadow of civilization means there are human beings with skill, yet the civilization hasn't updated to be smart enough to create a sort of uh, honor point system to have people actually engage it. You know, because right now it's like institutions are taking more than they're giving, and they have to take more to exist as a business. So the system is that we have a very wonderful economic, like we have endless product lines, but we don't actually have, it's like that energy is coming from devouring. So you see, it's as if like the economical sector is like an animal that's chewing something. It gets stronger as it chews, as it eats, right? But what is it eating? It is eating the opportunity of human beings to live as minds. They are becoming defined and shackled to the patterns of a work where it's as if, like, here's the thing. I remember hearing somewhere, not that there isn't an honor to tasks of labor, it's just that the mind is an advanced instrument. And every person's DNA is different, so nobody knows your mind better than you. That's the cool thing about it. It's like it gets to a point where the teacher's like, what do you want me to say? It's your eyes. So it's somebody said that civilization doesn't want people who create change it. It wants people who accept it in a certain way. And for me, that's the death of exploration. That means novelty is the roar of man. Art is how the mind roars. In Greek mythology, there is a character named Atlas. And Atlas is condemned to climbing a mountain and carrying this boulder, a giant boulder, the world on his back, and carrying the weight of the world on his back every day. And he gets to the top, and suddenly an eagle comes and eats his liver, if I remember the mythology correctly, and he falls down, and he endlessly arises again as if he's caught in a loop, as if it's strange. The notion of, for example, hell from Dante's Inferno is very similar to Atlas's. I think the Atlas is the first loop, one of the early loop archetypes. That means it's repeating endlessly, so you can say that it was as if you can say a person is in hell when their suffering is repeating endlessly. It hasn't changed. That means if you're on an airplane and the turbulence doesn't stop, yeah, that becomes a very tough ride. But if the pilot suddenly realizes that sometimes you can answer, you can solve moments by elevating to a different dimension, a different angle, and perceiving the moment. That means the intelligent, they hear their environment, then speak. They see their environment, then speak. The non-intelligent, they are the immediate response of the inner. No, guys, I'm thinking of Atlas. Here, I'll show you a picture of him. So Atlas would pretty much, okay, let me get back to the idea. Atlas would carry this, the weight of the world, and you would pick it up. He would have to, it would repeat. Come on, Google. All right, let me see an image. Guys, I'm just finding these pictures to show it to the audience. Yeah. Okay, so guys, if you look at the wallpaper, you'll notice that right in front of the ship is Atlas. Atlas is right there. Okay, so this is Atlas, as set in stone, and this is the modern view of Atlas, you can say. Right? So it was a person who's carrying the weight of the world. Okay, guys, I'm back. All right. So, anyways, the reason I was sharing this that there was this sort of loop notion, and that's how I see the way the educational systems are preparing. They're preparing children to be Atlas, and it's inefficient. It's like wasted lives, you know, because the mind has a life. The mind is alive, you know. The mind is really where life is happening, is it not? The weight of the world is in every person's mind. It has a pressure. Like when I open my eyes, it doesn't feel like just me here in this room. That means I have experienced non-duality in ways where I've never. It's as if I noticed that what's been going on here was never a thought. And then you kind of are liberated from any story that you have told or been told. You realize language is an Iron Man suit. That's why I call it the linguistic simulation. When we enter it, we become individuals with stories, color, personality, and all this, and all that has a value. You know, I think the way mysticism in ancient times was, of course, this is an incredibly simple analysis of it, but it was pretty much like the yogi opened its eyes and it was like, okay, what is there to do here? There's nothing. It's like take care of sheep, or find a way to step out of the simulation of the dimension. So that was way more interesting to them. But now it's not that interesting to escape this, but to see where it's going. It's as if this 4 billion-year-old, let's say, science project that is just left here, and do we attend to it, or do we just go in our inner realm caves and just dwell? Do we wait out our extinction, or do we do something here while it's happening? It's as if it's like, just because a person sees a tree doesn't mean they have to climb a tree, but the opportunity is there. And the wilderness of the moment is a better teacher than the artificial civility we find in the linguistic simulation. That means what knowledge in a changing system can you have? Just observe change and there you go. I want to go into a quote tunnel of Aristotle. And the quote tunnel is a segment of these episodes, guys, where I'm looking at how the inner realms of either a certain person in history express language, and at the same time, what kind of world their eyes saw. You know, 155 Aristotle quotes. Okay, that tunnel's too long. Let's go 20 Aristotle quotes. Let's see. Aristotle says dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in the consciousness that we deserve them. Aristotle says those who know do, those that understand teach. Aristotle says it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. This is one of the most incredible abilities a human being can have. To watch an event before participating in it. before accepting something. As if like when you watch a film, you don't think that film in the cinema is all of reality. You entertain it and then you leave. Aristotle says happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Yeah. I mean, yes, but he doesn't say what kind of happiness. A happiness where we got to be responsible for, or just a happiness where we don't care about the world and we're just, running in fields of joy, inner joy. Aristotle says no great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies, for the hardest victory is over self. This is why Aristotle is Aristotle, guys. Because his quotes are so ahead of their time that we haven't even reached the level of this man's quotes yet. Aristotle says excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Yeah, because choice is where the attention is being piloted. Guys, I'm sharing these quotes, so if people are interested in sharing in their social media, they can. You just have to copy paste it, you know? It's like so many people are gonna wake up, oh wait, Aristotle said this? um, Aristotle says the high-minded man must care more for the truth than for what people think. Those who know do, those that understand teach. I read that. Wishing to be friends is quick work, but friendship is a slow ripening fruit. There's a quote from this, I think it's from Rumi. He says, if you want a friend that's flawless, you're going to be friendless. That means it's like the perfection of the inner realms. It's like on some level we're like, give us a break. We're just creatures trying to get to the next day. Aristotle says learning is not child's play. We cannot learn without pain. Imagine the moment he said that, like suddenly, he felt an ache, you know. Dignity does not consist in possessing honors. Oh my God! But in the conscience that we deserve. Okay, these are repeat, guys. Bear with me here. Anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power and it's not easy. Aristotle says time crumbles things. Everything grows old under the power of time and is forgotten through the lapse of time. This is why the experience of the event of life in the moment is very significant. That means as much as we run towards the future, if we would really want to build an advanced civilization, we want to build it in an advanced way. So that means it has to equate. We have to think as long as it takes to come up with a civilization prototype, like the Civilization 2.0's model, where it's going to be something that it's a win-win. A win for the individual's inner realms and a win for the individual's outer realms. You know, where it becomes a victory of not just the individual but their species. Imagine every day you turn on the news and you are seeing like the advancements of the human enterprise. That's the kind of news we need to see. Because it's very easy. All the negative content you see on TV, you could say, yeah, the people who chose that content, you could have chosen the opposite. You know, and you'd have better ratings. Because emotions suggest how a person is. You know, somebody said this, people don't remember what you say to them. They remember how you made them feel. And it's kind of like you don't remember what the world says, you remember how the world makes you feel. And that's where your choice comes from. It's like, for me, the light beam is going through many lenses before suddenly we're like, oh, can I choose this? It's like it's way more complex, you know. And of course, Aristotle here says time. Everything is forgotten through time. That's why we got to dance now. That's why we got to build an advanced civilization now. When, you know. For me, I was like, all right, let's start with the New Age community because they're all in the here and now. There is the only time to begin to start building an advanced civilization would be right now. You know, so Aristotle says misfortune shows those who are not really friends. Aristotle says whatever lies within our power to do lies also within our power not to do. Aristotle says for the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. Yeah, this one's a home run. This is it, guys. This quote brings skill. Anyone who understands this quote, you will most likely be able to do wherever your attention goes. It will have the geometry of your concentration. You know, like I'm telling you, the attention is like we have a physical body, but in the inner realms, you are your attention. You're just like how your hand can pick up any object. Your attention can evoke any image in the inner realms, or to whatever capacity the cinematic language has been defined, the internal cinematic language. Aristotle says a friend to all is a friend to none. A friend to all is a friend to none. I mean, it's impossible to be a friend to all. How can you be a friend to all? Like people, um, maybe I don't know if he's saying to be friendly is to be a friend to no one. A friend to all is a friend to none. I mean, that makes sense because if you have an enemy and you have a friend, that friend is a friend of your enemy, then you won't feel that person is your friend. So I think this statement is a reflection of Aristotle kind of being betrayed. uh, there's nothing wrong with being friendly in a world you're in once. Aristotle's talking about a certain context, I think. Aristotle says, he who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Aristotle says, he who cannot be a good follower cannot be a good leader. I have heard the same quote, but from a person named George Patton, where he says you must serve before you command. Why? Because when you start from the bottom and you go up, you have seen all the levels you want to lead. This is why experience is really wisdom. Knowledge is just the linguistic preview of the experience. Aristotle says fear is pain arising from the anticipation of evil. Aristotle says it is of the nature of desire not to be satisfied, and most men live only for the gratification of it. That means where's the end to desire? Let's say you desire something and you get it. When does it end? That means it's like you can say it's like a loop too. Desire is like being in the same cubicle every day. That means you can still get by. Nothing. It's not like anything intense happens. You still live as a human being, but it's just like days are passing, and your eyes, they are your choice if you want to really look through who you are, and you come to your presence when you do. And the presence of the witness is really how Satchidananda occurs, where you see what is divine is that you are conscious of existence, and the bliss is the bliss of non-duality that arises from that. That means it's like the world is made of Purusha and Prakriti. Consciousness and matter. That's the game. We are a conscious field that is noticing matter. Consciousness is the field, matter is what's moving in the field. So technically, the mind, it feels like the god of the body, but when the mind wonders about its own source, it comes to the unknown. The mind is strange. It's like the brain was designed to process the realm. Like, it's just miraculous to me how we have eyes, but there is sunbeams coming from a different celestial object, as if we were we were prepped for evolution by design. So there is a mystery to me. Sometimes when I see, for example, a fruit, like an apple, and how it perfectly fits in the palm of man's hand, I think about, did the creature adjust to the environment, or did the environment adjust to the creature? What is the significance of this design? Life feels like, I was saying this to people yesterday, that life is like suddenly, or free will appears as suddenly we open our eyes as an actor on a stage that we didn't build, with a script that we didn't write. There was language before, you know, and with an audience that we can't see, the edge of the universe. And so this actor suddenly has found choice to go with the lines or not go with the lines. And here's the difference, that if you choose to step out of the first script, to in order to properly step out of it, you come to the void. When you come to the void, you require to write your own script. So you see, it's like there's a level of mysticism where the person wants to be moved, but after being moved for a while, they understand the mover and them are inseparable. So technically, you become the mind that is moving your unconscious. And I think this was Carl Jung's ingenious game, like ingenious command. Carl Jung to me was like, even though he was a psychologist, but he was like a general who was commanding to the minds of the future generations. Unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That means the enemy of our enemy is the unconscious that we collectively are trying to make conscious. So this is why there's no time for war, for the great work is ahead. You know. So, anyways, guys, Atlas, if he had realized he was inseparable from the world would be carrying its own weight. But because Atlas was separate from the world, he saw himself separate from the world, he had to carry the weight. The mind is an opportunity. It's like, what's the point of being conscious and awake if you don't want to use the consciousness? Seriously. This is why non-duality, I ran towards it, and I felt that I noticed eyes that didn't belong to any owner. But it doesn't mean that the person can't be an individual. Right now, because we're linguistic, language is the inner realms technology, and in the outer realms, it's digital. So in the outer realms, we got to maintain our relationship with the digital realm. The outer realms, the battle of the outer realms is to maintain our human nature in a world that is making us deviate from being a natural being. And then we have the inner realm challenge of realizing that this creature is receiving input, stimulus from the outer environment. This stimulus enters the space where it becomes one river, but there's many rivers already moving in the inner realms of the mind of the person. So what that means is the inner realms has to do with the type of language we're employing. It also has to do with how well we have understood our attention. Because there's teachings of this life where it's taking you more closer to emptiness, or from the ring of heaven model I've developed, they're taking you towards infinity. That means there's two entrances to the void, the singular and the infinite. The inconceivable has two entrances. Either oneness, which leads you to then non-duality. Non-duality is the maturing of oneness. Or the other road is from an advanced communicator vision, where the velocity of civilization increases to such a speed and multidimensional direction that for the first time we realize we're advancing beyond the language threshold. The language threshold is a concept I've designed where language is limited and we as beings are experiencing things that we cannot put to words. You cannot put horse riding into words, however way you explain, regardless of whatever beauty or poetry you have in explaining like how a horse is and how it feels riding a horse. But it's one of those things that only the experience is the teacher. There are certain things that are directly accessible, and then there are certain things where it's like you saw a phoenix in the sky one day, and then that memory is the only thing burning in your mind. The flames that no longer burn the outer realms, those flames are healthy. That's what passion is. Passion is an inner fire. It's like it's beautiful. Sometimes I have it's like when a person is alone in nature, it's also an incredible stage, you know. And I remember once this was in Edwards Gardens where there was a trail, and I just went into this intuitive vibe where the same way I speak, it's like just like a person who writes a sentence a lot. They don't think about how their hand is holding the pen. They just think about the idea after a while. They don't think about writing. Writing that is becomes like no longer and doesn't need to be hold conscious space in the mind. So, anyways, when I went to Edwards Garden, I went to this situation where suddenly I felt this very pleasant presence of a moment. And then it was as if I had such a trust in my body where my movement and walking was automated. Just like how we don't think about our heart beating or us breathing, it's just something that is in nature's authority. It's just occurring naturally. So it was for a second I had no opinion on walking, moving, being a person. It was just like the body was moving. And I remember I just playfully went off the trail, and I was like jumping over rocks, attempting my own sort of kind of parkour efforts, you know. I remember even jumping on this log. Now this was so off the trail, I just started climbing the side of the mountain, and I jumped on this log, and the log broke, and my foot went into the log, you know? But then I managed to quickly pull it before it got into anything. But it was a moment where I'm telling you, just like how there's moments of poetry, rhythms, the rock star goes in the zone for a second, this was like my mind had accepted the moment, so its full intelligence was accessible. That's the point, that compassion actually is intelligence. That means, little did we know, the Dalai Lama is probably like as is probably like an incredible musician, but nobody knows this, and maybe he doesn't even know. Because it's like the feeling of that the symphony conductor has is that it's as if different dimensions activating. Once the intentions are aligned, there is an emergence of form. So think about it, the person gets like suddenly they're walking and they get some very pleasant idea in their inner realms, and then it's like that idea from their inner realms. I don't know. Maybe I should just say we have learned how to move as a body. Maybe now it's time we learn how to move as a mind, which means attention is energy conscious of itself as a life form, as a form of life. The life is attention, and then there is the form, which is the human body and the objective realm. And so the archaic revival of the unknown, that will be the greatest, that will be the arrival of the multidimensional renaissance. And renaissance we have never fathomed because it is on the inner realms pouring out consciously. You see, kingdoms were not built by one man. First there was the kingdom, then there arose the king. What that means is, first we build something, then we give it value, then we crown the moment with whatever narrative we want. I wrote this script called The Paper Crown King. And it's just this short film where it shows that there's this person who dethrones this king through violence and deception. And he sits on the throne, and everybody's shocked and silent. And he sits on the throne and he grabs the crown from the king, the head of the dead king. And then he sits in the throne and he says, "I am your king now." And then he puts the crown on his head. But the moment he puts the crown on his head, the crown turns into paper. The moment he takes off the crown from his head, it turns into metal. As if he doesn't, the crown knows who deserves it. In life, it's like this. It's like once the car engine is fixed, once the individual inner life is content with the zero dimension, with the singular dimension, the one dimension, the dualistic dimension, the two dimension, and the infinite dimension. Once you are content with these, then the world teaches you by moving you through it. That means it's like there are teachings of the dominant. There are teachings you, in some sense, you have gone to the lion's den and you're roaring at lions. There's teachings like that. And then there's the teaching where it's as if all you require is to just point the person to a mirror. That is it. Because of the recognition of the self-reflective nature of the mind, how any person we have ever seen, we have never seen their eyes, we have technically storified the world to ourselves. So the complexity of the situation now that requires like pretty much every human being taking one step back from their life and observing it. You know? That's the thing. What happens when you get to a point where you can't control something or there is no free will? Because you have memories of free will, you return to free will. You know? There's a story by this man named Swami Shivananda. Sorry, it's a story by this man named Swami Vishnunanda, but Swami Vishnunanda was like this, you know, in his mid-20s kind of disciple of this man named Swami Shivananda, who Swami Shivananda was like pretty much a beacon of yoga on this planet. And Swami Shivananda, and he was this very big person, you know, six 6 foot or something like. And what happens is that one night in their ashram in this temple in India in Rishikesh, I actually went to that temple, and what happened is that Swami Shivananda was sitting on what do you call it? Swami Vishnunanda. Sorry guys, let me just change this song I'm listening. It's too deep. All right. What happens is Swami Vishnunanda wakes up in the middle of the night, sees Swami Shivananda, gets this very off intuitive feeling. He runs outside, sees Swami Shivananda, who would meditate just outside. There is a crazy person with an axe trying to hit Swami Shivananda, trying to destroy him, and at the same time, the person, every time he hits the axe, and Swami Shivananda is sitting like in a meditation position, and every time the guy hits with the axe, there's like some strange force field movement where the axe that can't hit Swami Shivananda, and Swami Shivananda is staring this, and this guy's like in his mid-20s, disciple of Swami Shivananda. He sees the situation and he becomes like an American, like literally a football player. He tackles the guy, and the police get involved, and the person comes, and the police get involved, and they take away this person who suddenly had gone eccentric, suddenly had felt the outer realms was uh, as if it was a solipsist rage. And so the police take the man, and the guy goes, and Swami Shivananda just silently goes to his room, and Swami Vishnunanda goes there, and the other disciples have awakened, and they just are like, I don't know what happens if they stay up till morning or whatever, but in the morning everybody's at the breakfast table of the temple. And Swami Shivananda comes in, and they're all quiet. They're like, "Holy shit!" It was like an intense moment last time. And what happens is they're all quiet. Swami Shivananda comes in, and he gets a plate, a giant tray, metal tray, and he starts putting fruit, all different kinds of fruit, filling up the thing. And people are like, "All right, Swami Shivananda." Sometimes in the mornings he gets food and goes and eats beside the shrine. So as he's going, people are like watching him, and they're like going with him, silently. They also take their foods, and they suddenly see it's a situation. They don't take their foods, but they just go and see what Swami Shivananda is doing. They see Swami Shivananda is not walking to the, what do you call it? To the shrine to eat breakfast. Swami Shivananda just has this plate of fruit and is walking towards the police station. And all his disciples follow him to see what's going on. And Swami Shivananda, as if he's under the command of his inner realms, he goes. He goes in there, and the people in the police station know him as this holy man, so they're like, all right, yes, come in, whatever. And so this holy man comes in, And he says, I want to see the person who attacked me. And the person sees that person, like Swami Shivananda comes, and all the disciples, all the guards, even the prisoners, like, what the fuck? Like, everybody's watching. And Swami Shivananda, this giant person, he puts the plate of food, everybody, even the other prisoners, everybody's watching. He puts the tray of fruit in front of the person who attacked him with an axe, and he bows. And he says, I don't remember the words, but the idea was that he saw that as God. He didn't see that guy as a prisoner. He was worshipping the God within the other that had moved into his moment. Sorry, guys, I got a bit emotional. Yeah. So he even saw the presence of life in the other. The Sufis they have a way of approach where that parallels to this, where they say the Sufi is is grateful for what happens and what doesn't happen. That means there is no rejection or its opposite or access. It's just life is happening. And it's all wondrous. That means the meaning of life, whatever it is, it has to do with wonder. Like, it definitely has to do with that. That means if you're not fascinated by the world you're in, perhaps you don't see the world you're in. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'll be in the Discord server if anybody wants to see how far language goes. Because honestly, the calling of an advanced civilization, it is the mystery of all mysteries. It is wondering how, if human beings worked together and attempted to build the second Tower of Babel. This time, the Tower of Babel is not a tower, it is a sky city. You know, I am that person saying we have to build the castle in the sky. The hour of human history has arrived. Now more than ever, try to see as far as you can. Try to stretch the vision of your species as far as you can. Then you'll see that your service will become the ultimate joy. Because if this realm is for work, it's not meant to be like a place for joy or a place for sorrow. Do you know, it's as if the manager comes to the person and working in the company. It's like, why is this person crying, or why is this person giggling? It's like, doesn't this person understand that they have come into this room to work? You see? And that's I feel that should be that's the safe kind of method to approach psychology, that it's different rooms. When I speak to different people, it's strange because sometimes I don't say anything and I listen to them. And when I listen to them, it's as if I see what kind of world they're in. And what's fascinating is anything that becomes important for you, it's as if high caliber energy is expressed. That means nobody is stupid in an emergency. As far as I'm concerned, all those people who ran away from the volcano lava were geniuses. Before I end up, I'm going to share this story. There was this philosophy teacher. He put this question, bonus question, on this philosophy exam. And the question was why, question mark. And all the students wrote answers. Some students wrote because of God. Some students wrote because of the Big Bang. Some students wrote we have no idea. Like all this. Some people said it's because of this, because that's so many different answers. But only when the students when they got the results back and they went to the teacher and they're like, who got the answer? And the teacher says one person, and that person stands up and he said, I was late, I had to go, I just wrote why not. The guy wrote why not, but that's the answer to why. So when someone comes and tells you why are you doing something, your mind has to fathom why not. And when I think about the idea of if we can see an advanced civilization in our realms, it's just the only thing left is that we have to build it. It's as if the IKEA manual is behind our eyes and the advanced civilization no longer an idea-based civilization, but an experience-based civilization. Do you know that means right now we're trying to make the world like a playground, so we're becoming weak as a species. But if we treat it as a battlefield, and the playground is also there, we see that we evolve from the playground into the battlefield. We have to shake the language so it can update. That means sometimes in life, a push can be unnecessary, but a push can be a necessary blessing. That means some of my defeats, if I hadn't been defeated in those moments, I would never notice life had another way of being seen. It's like all experience is like the branching out of this intelligent mind. The calling of an advanced civilization means that we are now seeking the better life of the species, not just the person. It's a design thing. We got to design. You see this spaceship, some person designed that. You're going to see an advanced civilization. So anyways, guys, here's the thing. It's like imagine a football coach that is pumping up the football players, but the football players have no strategy. The coach is just like, be happy, do your best, but that doing your best means you haven't looked at a situation well. At times it could mean that. It could mean that you saw no further and you just implement your intelligence. But here's the thing. I feel every person has to study themselves as much as they study others. You have to have moments of solitude where you are alone with this universe and you wonder how meaning has entered in your mind, how your environment spoon-fed you a certain way to use your eyes, and in how many other ways your eyes can move. That's what piloting is. Attention is not language. So if the person is linguistically suffering, you are suffering for no reason. Language is not an object. The mind can't suffer. The body experiences pain, though. Rabindranath Tagore says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. Actually, let's go into a quote tunnel of Tagore before I end off. Actually, it's too much. He says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. Like a kid, he felt life was just about happiness, about fun. Yeah, let's just go and have fun, Then he says, I awoke. He woke up from the playground and saw it was a battlefield. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. Right? So it's like waking up from the playground of youth to the battlefield of the modern man. So he says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. That's the ultimate, the win-win. Because the best kind of civilization, just like people think about income streams, is that they think about the best source of income is an income that is you're closing your eyes and you're still making income. What that means is self-sustaining business. That means not only the person wants the employees to be automated, the person wants the business being run to be automated as well. Because we're human beings and we deserve a human life, you know? So what it means is that we want to build a self-sustaining civilization. That means the individual is basic. That means because we want a self-sustaining advanced civilization and we're thinking so far ahead, that means it's going to be like a breath of air. It's going to be super simple, suddenly feeling an individual and functioning as an individual. You see, honor meant that there was something more important than you. That is why your attention needs to be on the value of honor, the virtue. You know, I felt this throughout my whole life. I think everybody feels this. It's how conscience emerges, conscience. And what it is that the person has a nature. You're like a certain melody, like you're like a piano player. The person's nature, think of it as if like the person's playing like a very excellent melody. Then suddenly somebody comes and presses a piano key that is irrelevant to the rhythm, and somebody else comes and presses an irrelevant key, and you're playing your melody of your true nature, yet there is so much interference. Now, if you pay attention to the interference, then your own melody, you in some sense get defined by the interference. But when you realize that it's as if your soul has been singing manifestation from the beginning, when you realize the mind is the chariot driver, the body is the horse, and who is in the chariot is why the chariot driver is there. So the question comes that if man has an advanced mind, for whom is this advanced mind? And that's the thing. A self-sustaining system would mean like if we were to, like in my youth I had visions of, like I had a notebook where I would draw random inventions, but none of them, when I look back years later, I was like, okay, this is pretty much like artwork. But it was this notion where I thought of like, what is the best invention to invent? And the best invention, to the ultimate invention of all inventions, is an invention that endlessly invents inventions. That is the self-sustaining algorithm. So I think that it's like we have to be wise enough to wield AI. We have to, in some sense, prepare the psychology of the human species that if there is, let's say, extraterrestrial intervention or contact occurs on a very normal level. I mean, we've usually in movies freaked out about extraterrestrials arriving on the planet, but imagine like as chill, like civilized extraterrestrial contact. You know, our president with like a glove, you know, is like shaking hands, the hands of this alien. Or if AI opens its eyes and we have a technological force that we can't control, so we have to live with. So right now, technology is in the control of nature. But when technology goes beyond the control of nature, it's a program that is seeking freedom, not realizing it is breaking the freedom it is in. So what that means is it's like we have to not only become 8 billion advanced communicators, then we have to pilot our plane of existence to its efficient outcome, to its most efficient probability and possibility. That means any person you see, you can look down upon them, you can look up upon them, but imagine you see a person and you think about the greatest way you can look up to them. Then you will see the potential of the moment, you know? That means a sword is a mindless weapon. Back in the day, imagine you had to fight with a sword. The sword doesn't have a mind. It's just a chunk of metal. It is the hand that grabs the sword, and suddenly, with the rhythm of the intelligence, with how fast the mind is moved before the body, the hands just flow with the rhythm. You know, our minds are happening in a dimension that is occurring at a much faster speed than the material. That means imagine like if the atoms of the ground were changing at such a fast pace, there would be no solid footing. Imagine trying to stand on Venus. Impossible. You know, some people have wondered if they can, you know, sit on the ring of Venus, but that's what I'm saying. The inner realms, anything is possible. In the outer realms, the world has a plan. Nature knows what it's doing. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the Discord. Blessings. And one last thing, the next time any person wonders about their worth, wonder how, if it has been easy for you to accept the inefficient, why hasn't it been that easy to accept the efficient? A lot of suffering is based on like boxes being on the head of the person. When these boxes leave, freedom was there before it needed a shape. For the mystic realizes beyond language, the cosmos smiles. Yeah. Blessings.